Okay, we'll start the lecture. Am I audible? Hello. So good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is fine and safe at home. So we'll start with our new topic, that is mandible and muscle of mastication. As we are dealing with a bone, I request you to please keep your textbook with you so that you can see the bony landmarks. It is somehow hard to understand the bone on the PPT, and usually we deal it in LCD with the bone in our hand. So please have any textbook or soft copy in front of you, or the atlas of anatomy, so that you can see the small bony landmarks of mandible. So first, mandible is the strongest and the largest bone of the face. Hope you know the bones of the face. So it is the lowermost part. Here you can see in this picture, it articulates with the temporal bone to form the temporomandibular joint. First way, it is lowermost bone, and it is having two parts. The horseshoe-shaped body is there, and quadrilateral plates are there. Pair of quadrilateral plates, they are known as rami. You can see in this picture, the front portion is the body, whereas the side part is the rami. The part of one of the part of rami will articulate with the temporal bone to form the temporomandibular joint.
Can you please be a little loud?
Okay. So mandible, it is having body and two quadrilateral plates that are known as rami. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So body is horseshoe shaped. You can see in this next picture, it is the half portion of the outer part of the mandible. Just try to understand it. The front portion is the body part, and the quadrilateral plate, which is vertical, is the ramus. The outer surface, the two halves of the mandible, you can see in this picture, the two half of the mandible are initially before birth, they are two parts. In two parts, after birth, within 1 year, they fuse in the center to form a single mandible, and the line in the center, which is the line of fusion, it is known as symphysis menti. Okay, it is known as symphysis menti. Can you appreciate the lowermost part of your chin? There is slight depression is there. This is the lower part of the symphysis menti, is known as the mental protuberance. Okay, on the side of the mental protuberance, on the lateral aspect, there is another elevation on its inferolateral aspect, which is known as the mental tubercle. Okay, so initially the mandible is formed by two half portions before birth. At the time of birth, they are connected with each other with the help of fibrous portion, and that fibrous portion unite at the end of 1 year to form that fusion line is known as symphysis menti. The lowermost depressed part of symphysis menti is known as the mental protuberance, which is triangular in shape, and the inferolateral part of that triangle is known as mental tubercle. Please just go through your textbook. Okay. You see the figure or picture of the mandible. Then on this side, or the where first we'll discuss the body of the mandible. This is just the half portion of the mandible. This is the outer surface. The body part is having outer surface and inner surface, and the superior border and inferior border. You can just compare it with your hand. If you keep your hand in a vertical position, the palmar aspect is the inner surface of the mandible, the dorsal aspect, the outer surface of the mandible. Here the upper border, which is in relation with the thumb, is the upper border or the alveolar border, which bears the alveolar socket for two, and the border of the hand, which is in relation to little finger, is the base of the mandible or lower border. Okay, hope you're getting these surfaces and border. So the outer surface shows presence of a foramen that is known as the mental foramen. It gives passage to the mental nerves and vessels. Okay? And about the outer surface, there is one oblique line you can appreciate coming as the continuation of the anterior border of ramus. This gives attachment to few muscles. Okay, so what are the things which are present on the body of the ramus? It is having outer surface and inner surface, a superior border or upper border and the inferior border. So upper border bears the sockets for the tooth, whereas the lower border is thick and it forms the base of the mandible. Okay, just in the middle of the body there is presence of a foramen which is known as mental foramen for the passage of the mentalis nerve and vessels. Then there is one line running obliquely from the ramus till the mental foramen. This is known as oblique line. We'll discuss the muscle attachment on it later on. Just below the incisor tooth, there is presence of a depression. You can see in the first picture that is known as incisive fossa. Hope you know that number or counting of the tooth. So the first incisor tooth, below that there is depression which is known as the incisive fossa. Okay? So that about the outer surface of the ramus or sorry body of the mandible. Then inner surface, just see here on the inner surface. Again, the inner surface shows presence of a line which is continuation of the anterior border of the ramus. This is known as the mylohyoid line. You can remember with its name that through this line there is origin of the mylohyoid muscle. Okay. This mylohyoid line is related with two depressions on the inner aspect. This above depression is known as the sublingual fossa. Below depression is known as the submandibular fossa. As name suggests, sublingual fossa is for the lodgement of the sublingual gland and submandibular fossa is for the lodgement of the submandibular gland. These are the salivary glands. The mandible is related with all three salivary glands, that is parotid, sublingual and submandibular. Parotid is in relation to ramus of the mandible, whereas sublingual and submandibular are in relation to the inner surface of the body of the mandible. Just behind the symphysis menti on the inner aspect, there are presence of 4 genial tubercles. You can appreciate here, this is the half portion, so 2 genial tubercles are shown here that give attachment to 2 different muscles. Okay. Just below the genial tubercle, there is a depression which is known as digastric fossa. Again, you can remember with the name of this fossa. Here there is attachment of muscle which is known as the digastric muscle. Okay, that about the inner surface of the mandible. So our inner surface of body of mandible. So again I am repeating, the mandible is divided into 2 parts, body and ramus. Ramus are the quadrilateral plates which are projecting backward from the body. Body is horseshoe shaped. It is having outer surface, inner surface, superior border and inferior border. Superior border is for the lodgement of teeth. You can appreciate in this first picture, superior border is for the lodgement of teeth. Inferior border forms the base. The outer surface shows presence of symphysis menti in the middle. The lowermost triangular portion is known as symphysis mental protuberans. Its inferior lateral angles are known as mental tubercle. Just in the middle, there is one foramen which is known as mental foramen, and there is one line which is known as oblique line. That is about the outer surface. Whereas on the inner surface, there is presence of mylohyoid line, which is dividing the inner surface into 2 fossa. The fossa above is known as sublingual fossa for the lodgement of sublingual gland. The fossa below is known as the submandibular fossa for the lodgement of submandibular gland. Then on the inner aspect of the central portion, middle portion of the body, there is presence of 4 tubercles. These are known as the genial tubercles, and below that there is a depression which is known as digastric fossa. Okay, so that all about the body of the ramus. Then body of the mandible. Then about the ramus, you can appreciate in this picture, it is quadrilateral plate. Again, it's having outer surface or lateral surface on medial surface and 4 borders. The upper notched portion is the superior border, which is thin. The lower prominent border is the inferior border, which unites with the inferior border of the body at the forming an angle. Then the anterior border and posterior border. Along with that, it is also having 2 processes. One coronoid process, which projects from the anterior superior part of the ramus, which is crow-beak-like appearance, so the name is given coronoid process. And from the posterior superior part of the mandible, there is another projection which is known as condylar process. You can appreciate the shape of these 2 processes. The coronoid process is triangular in shape, which is having a prominent apex. There is the condylar process. At the upper end, it is expanded from side to side. That forms head. The lower constricted part is known as the neck of the condylar process. Here remember, this condylar process articulate with the temporal bone to form the temporomandibular joint. Okay. So that about the ramus of the mandible. Its outer surface is almost flat and having some bony ridges over it, whereas the inner surface shows presence of one foramen in the middle or the center of the ramus, which is known as mandibular foramen. This mandibular foramen inside continues as the mandibular canal. Just at the anterior margin of mandibular foramen, there is tongue-shaped projection that is known as lingula. Okay. And just below the mandibular foramen, there is presence of a groove, which is known as mylohyoid groove. Okay. So that is present on the inner surface or the medial surface of the ramus of the mandible. The lower portion of the medial surface is rough for the attachment of one muscle. Now, on the inner aspect of the condylar process, you can appreciate in this diagram, there is a depression which is known as pterygoid fovea. So that is about the external features of the ramus of the mandible. I am again repeating the outer surface, the external feature of ramus. It is quadrilateral plate. Just imagine one quadrilateral plate in vertical, standing vertically in your mind. It is having lateral surface, medial surface, and 4 borders. The superior border is thin and it is notched. To form that notch is known as mandibular notch. Okay. Inferior surface continues, inferior border continues with the base of the mandible, and the point where the inferior border unites with the posterior border of ramus, that is known as angle of the mandible. Then there is thin anterior border, which is continuing with the oblique line, and the thick posterior border. 2 processes, one is coronoid process and other is the condylar process. Okay. So that about the external features of the mandible. Now about the muscle attachments on it. First about the outer surface. We have discussed about the oblique line. You can appreciate here the muscles of the facial expression are attached for it. The first muscle, which is just at the start of the oblique line, is the buccinator muscle, puffing muscle. Second, just at the end of the oblique line, there is attachment of the depressor labii inferioris and depressor anguli oris. These are the origin of these muscles. Then in the incisive fossa near it, there is origin of mentalis muscle and orbicularis oris muscle. At the base of the mandible, there is attachment of the platysma muscle, which is a muscle of the neck. Okay. And the most important attachments which are present on the mandible is the muscles of mastication. Okay. There are 4 muscles of mastication: temporalis, masseter, medial pterygoid, and lateral pterygoid. Okay. So insertion of these muscles are present on the mandible. You can appreciate the coronoid process, where at the near its apex and the anterior border, whole of the anterior border, there is insertion of temporalis muscle, whereas the whole of the lateral surface of the ramus, there is insertion of masseter muscle, except the posterior superior part where it is related with the parotid gland. Okay. That about the attachments on the outer surface. Then inner surface, you can appreciate the insertion of temporalis on the inner aspect also. Then we have discussed just in front of the condylar process, there is one depression which is known as pterygoid fovea. Here there is insertion of lateral pterygoid muscle. Okay. However, there are insertion of the muscles of mastication over the mandible. Then just behind the third molar tooth near the upper border of the body, here there is origin of the one of the muscles of pharynx which is known as superior constrictor muscle. Just in front of the superior constrictor muscle, there is attachment of pterygomandibular raphe. Okay, this is fascia. That is pterygomandibular raphe. We have discussed about the mylohyoid line. Over the mylohyoid line, there is origin of mylohyoid muscle. Okay. Then on the genyl tubercle, we have discussed there are 4 genyl tubercle. On the 2 superior genyl tubercle, there is origin of genioglossus muscle. Okay. You can remember by like this, the tongue is above the hyoid bone. So on the superior genyl tubercle, there is origin of genioglossus muscle, and on the inferior genyl tubercle, there is origin of geniohyoid muscle. Okay. Below that, there was digastric fossa. Digastric means 2 belly. So the anterior belly is attached on the digastric fossa. Then on the ramus, its inferior aspect, rough area, there is insertion of medial pterygoid muscle, again one of the muscle of mastication. Then the vessels which are in relation to the ramus and the body of the mandible. On the outer aspect, we have discussed about the mental foramen. The mental foramen give passage to mental nerves and vessels. Whereas the mandibular notch, which is present on the superior border of ramus, it is related with the masseteric nerves and vessel. The base of the mandible is related with facial vessels. Okay, so facial artery can be palpated at the base of the mandible along the anterior-inferior border of masseter. Okay, so this is one of the artery for peripheral pulsation, facial artery. Again, the inner aspect. Hope you're getting the points. I'm again and again telling that please refer your textbook for the bony markings or seeing the proper attachments on it. Okay, so condylar process on the inner aspect is related with the auriculotemporal nerve, and just behind the posterior border of the ramus, there is passage of the external carotid artery. So 2 of its branches are related with the mandible. One which is going above, that is superficial temporal artery. This one. And this is the maxillary artery. The branch of the maxillary artery, which is the inferior alveolar artery along with the inferior alveolar nerve, will enter into the mandibular foramen and passes through the mandibular canal. Okay. Another nerve which is related with mandible is the lingual nerve. And we have discussed that in this aspect, it is related with the mandibular foramen, lingula, and here is the mylohyoid groove. So in the mylohyoid groove, it is related with mylohyoid nerve and artery. Okay. So that about the inner aspect of the mandible, the attachments on it. Again, you can appreciate this genyl tubercle here. The upper genyl tubercle gives attachment to genioglossus muscle. You can see here the fibers going from superior genyl tubercle to the tongue, whereas the fibers of geniohyoid muscle goes from the inferior genyl tubercle to the hyoid bone. Again, remember, tongue is above the hyoid bone. The superior will be genioglossus muscle and the inferior will be the geniohyoid muscle. Then below the genyl tubercle, there is a fossa which is known as digastric fossa. Muscle taking origin is the anterior belly of digastric muscle. Okay, anterior belly, and this is the posterior belly. The attachment of digastric muscle we'll discuss later on. At present, just remember just below the genyl tubercle, there is a triangular depression which is known as digastric fossa, from which the anterior belly of digastric muscle takes origin. Now this picture to show the relation of the structures with the mandible. One part of the mandible is cut open here. You can appreciate the inner aspect. This is the mylohyoid muscle, which is dividing it into two grooves. This is the sublingual gland and this is the submandibular gland. This is the anterior belly of digastric. Here the vessels related with it, and this is the masseteric muscle. The posterior superior part is related with the parotid gland. Okay? So the mandible, it is related with three salivary glands. The ramus, it is related with the outer surface of ramus is related with parotid gland, and the inner surface of body above related with sublingual gland, and the lower part is related with the submandibular gland. Okay? Now the clinical aspect, before that the ossification, the mandible ossified by two halves that appears, the center appears in the 6th week of intrauterine life. They are attached with each other with the help of one fibrous portion that unite at the end of 1 year. Clinical aspect, the fracture of the mandible is most common in the canine fossa. Second most common portion is related with the junction of the body and ramus, and third is the neck of the mandible. Okay? So this is the part which is related with clinical aspect, that is the fracture of the mandible. Now after that, the age related changes in the mandible. Hope you're understanding the parts and the attachments. Attachments, of course, you have to read twice or thrice to remember it. So age related changes in the mandible, you can appreciate this first one. This is the mandible of child, adult mandible, and old age group mandible. So in case of children, there are changes in mandible with age. There are changes in the mental foramen and the mandibular canal. So the mental foramen, it is, in case of children, it is in close relation to the lower border, as well as the canal is running near the lower border because the alveolar socket is not properly formed. Whereas in the adult, the mental foramen is present in the center between the upper border and the lower border. And in old age, the alveolar part is absorbed almost. So the mental foramen is towards the upper border, whereas also the mandibular canal is near the upper border. You can appreciate the angle between the ramus and the body. It is 140 degree or it is 110 to 120 degree obtuse angle in case of children, because it is more in relation to body, whereas the angle it acute in case of adult, because it is ramus is almost vertical. Again the angle become obtuse 140 degree because the superior border is absorbed, so height of the body is reduced. Third point of difference is of coronite process in children. It is more prominent and above the condylite process, whereas it is not the case in case of adult and old age. Okay, so this is also important. Ask in Viva about the age-related changes in the mandible. When we will meet in the college, we'll show you the mandibles of different age group. And it will be very easy to understand. Again, just go through this portion that the two halls of the mandible fuse during the first year of life. At birth, the mental foramen opens below the socket for the two decidual molar teeth near the lower border. The mandibular canal runs near the lower border. Okay? The angle is obtuse, that is this 140 degree. What about adult? The mental foramen opens midway between the upper and lower border. The angle reduced to about 110 to 120 degree. In old age, teeth fall out and the alveolar border is absorbed, so that the height of body is markedly reduced. Mental foramen and the mandibular canal are close to the alveolar border. and the angle again become obtuse about 140 degree because the ramus is oblique. Okay, so these are the age-related changes of the mandible. Now, briefly about the muscles of mastication, which helps in the chewing of food. There are 4 muscles of mastication: temporalis, masseter, medial pterygoid, and lateral pterygoid. So insertion of these muscles we have already seen on the mandible. So first, the temporalis muscle, as the name suggests, it is obviously related with temporal bone. This is fan-shaped muscle having anterior fiber, middle fiber, and the posterior fiber. They're coming from the temporal fossa. Remember the skull, norma lateralis, superior temporal line, inferior temporal line, and just behind the zygomatic arch, this portion is known as temporal fossa. Okay? So from the temporal fossa, there is origin of temporalis muscle. The anterior fibers goes vertically downward. You can appreciate in this picture. The middle fibers goes obliquely, whereas the posterior fibers goes horizontally. There was the insertion of temporalis we have discussed in this mandible. Temporalis muscle get inserted over the apex, medial surface, and whole of the anterior border of the ramus. Okay? So this is the insertion of temporalis muscle. Now supplies temporalis nerve branches from the mandibular nerve. So as the fibers of temporalis are inserted over the coronoid process, the contraction of the muscle will closes the mouth. We'll discuss the actions later on. So this is first about temporalis muscle. Hope you understood the origin and insertion. Temporalis, as name suggests, takes origin from temporal fossa and it gets inserted over the coronoid process. Okay. Second muscle is the masseter muscle. Again, it is having 3 heads. In this picture, you can see 2 heads: superficial head and deep head. It's again having one middle head. Superficial head comes from the lower border of the anterior 2/3 of this is the zygomatic arch. So anterior 2/3 part, lower border gives origin to superficial head. The deep head comes from the inner surface of the zygomatic arch, whereas the middle head will come from the posterior 1/3 of the zygomatic arch. Okay? Any problem? Any difficulty? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. No problem.
So 3 heads: superficial head, middle head, and deep head, coming from the zygomatic arch. The superficial head fibers will go obliquely downward, making an angle of 45 degree, and it gets inserted over the whole of the extent of ramus except the posterior superior part, which is occupied by the parotid gland. Okay? So that about the masseter muscle attachment. Remember 3 heads: superficial head from the anterior 2/3 part of the lower border of zygomatic arch, deep head from the inner aspect of the zygomatic arch, and the middle head from the posterior 1/3 part of lower border of zygomatic arch. Whole of it will get inserted over the major portion of lateral surface of ramus of the mandible, except the posterior superior part, which is occupied by the parotid gland. We have discussed earlier that this anterior-inferior part of masseter is related with one vessel, which is known as the facial artery. What about these 2 muscles? What is the next muscle? Medial pterygoid muscle. Medial pterygoid is again having 2 heads. In brief, the attachment. So medial pterygoid muscle, which is having upper head and the lower head. The upper head takes origin from, it is somewhat difficult to see in this picture, it takes origin from the infratemporal surface, and we are having 2 plates on the base of the skull. These are known as the pterygoid plates, medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid. Remember the both muscle, medial pterygoid plates both muscle, medial pterygoid as well as lateral pterygoid, takes origin from the lateral pterygoid plate only. Okay. So the medial surface of the pterygoid, lateral pterygoid plate will give origin to the medial pterygoid muscle. Just see this chart. Superficial head from the tuberosity of maxilla and the deep head from the medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate. Okay. So this is the origin of the medial pterygoid muscle. See here from the tuberosity of maxilla and the deep head from the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. Here can you appreciate, this is the medial pterygoid plate and this is the lateral pterygoid plate. Okay. From its medial surface, there is origin of one of the head of the medial pterygoid muscle, and it is getting inserted over the inner aspect of the medial surface of ramus of the mandible. Okay. So that about the medial pterygoid plate. Then lateral pterygoid, another muscle, upper head from the infratemporal surface and crest of greater sphenoid bone. Here, this is the infratemporal surface. This is a temporal bone. This area is infratemporal surface. So the upper head takes origin from the infratemporal surface and its crest, whereas the lower head from the lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate. Again, I am repeating, both medial pterygoid and lateral pterygoid takes origin from the lateral pterygoid plate, from its medial surface and lateral surface. These both fibers fuses with each other and get inserted over there's depression in front of condylar part, which is known as pterygoid fovea. Okay, so this is the lateral pterygoid muscle. Again, we'll discuss this. We will read the origin and insertion. Masseter muscle. What is it? It is having three heads: superficial layer, deep layer, and middle layer. Superficial from the anterior 2/3 of lower border of zygomatic arch. Remember, masseter muscle takes origin, is related with zygomatic arch. The superficial part from the anterior 2/3 part of lower border, middle layer from the lower border के posterior 1/3 part से, and the deeper layer from the deep surface of zygomatic arch. All three will unite and it get inserted over the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible. Then what is the nerve supply? Same with the name, masseteric nerve. It's a branch of anterior division of mandibular nerve. What is the action? It will elevate the mandible and its fiber will cause protrusion. Then sliding, I hope you understand the meaning of protrusion and retraction. Protrusion means the making the mandible on the outer aspect or taking it out, that is protrusion, and back to the normal position is retraction. Okay. Then temporalis from the temporal fossa, excluding the zygomatic bone, and temporal fascia. Okay. It's easy to remember with its name. Then insertion on the coronoid process and anterior border of ramus of the mandible. What about the nerve supply? The two deep temporal branches from the anterior division of mandibular nerve. That about the temporalis nerve supply. What is the action? Again, this muscle is coming from superior aspect. So contraction of this muscle will elevate the mandible. Again, helps in side to side grinding movement, and the posterior fibers will cause the retraction of the protruded mandible. Then lateral and medial pterygoid, already we have discussed about its attachment. Nerve supply of lateral pterygoid is branched from anterior division of mandibular nerve. What is the action? It depresses the mandible to open the mouth, protrude the mandible, and remember the right and left pterygoid muscle along in coordination will help in the grinding movement or the side to side chewing movement. Okay. So that about the attachments of the muscles of mastication. There are four muscles of mastication: temporalis, masseter, medial pterygoid, and lateral pterygoid. Temporalis taking origin from temporal fossa, getting inserted over the coronoid process, is deep and anterior border of the ramus. Masseteric muscle, three heads, all are related with zygomatic arch, getting inserted over the lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible. Medial pterygoid from the part of maxillary tuberosity and the medial surface of lateral pterygoid plate. getting inserted over the inner aspect of the ramus of the mandible, rough area. Then lateral pterygoid having two heads again from the infratemporal surface and the lateral surface of lateral pterygoid plate, and it is getting inserted over the pterygoid fovea. So that about the muscles of the mastication. Hope you understood. Just try to see or go through the textbook for the muscle, for the bony prominence on the mandible. Whenever we meet in the college, we'll again show you the bone, mandible, and the different bony landmarks on it. Okay. Any difficulty? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.